Welcome to A Personal Tao. Today we're going to talk about the tree of love. In working with people over the last 20 years, I have actually developed a new system on how to work with relationships, and I call the process the tree of love. And it's an amazingly accurate way to understand what a relationship is, to work through problems, and to improve your relationship. So let's look at the tree of love. In the tree of love, there are 8 characteristics that make a relationship work. Okay? So now, the first characteristic that everyone thinks about is love. And love represents the leaves of a tree. Now, love is not enough for a relationship. If you only try to have your relationship survive on love, your relationship will fail. Guaranteed. Like this tree. If I were to take away the branches, and if I were to take away the roots and the trunk, what would happen to the leaves? They would fall down and die. Without the support network to allow the love to flourish, love will not be enough to make a relationship flourish. So, what does love mean? Love is becoming more. When you love something, that something helps you be more. When you love something, you also help it become more. And becoming more, we grow, just like the leaves of the tree. The leaves provide the sugar to the tree, they provide the energy so the tree can grow. But on their own, the leaves can't survive. So, there are 8 elements of a tree, not one. And that's one of the traps of modern culture. Modern culture teaches you that love is enough. And that's not true. Now, let's look at this for a second. So, love is important. Without love, the relationship fails. But as important as love, come down to the bottom, are the roots and the trunk. And the roots and the trunk represent chemistry. So now let's look at the tree for a second. There are 8 elements in a relationship, it turns out. They're the leaves, then there are the 3 aspects of the trunk and the roots, and then 4 branches. Now, the parts of a relationship you can fix will be the branches. The parts of the relationship you can't fix, which have to be naturally there, are the roots and the trunk. So the roots and the trunk are chemistry. Turns out there's 3 chemistries. You have physical chemistry, you have intellectual chemistry, and you have spiritual chemistry. You need all 3 to have a strong relationship. Now, for a lot of people, they initially get by with just the physical chemistry. But if you only use physical chemistry, you'll only grow so far before it peters out and ends. So relationships which are purely physical tend to only last 7 years. Now, as we grow older, the chemistry balances do shift. So as we're younger, the physical chemistry tends to be what overwhelms us. But as we get older, the intellectual chemistry and the spiritual chemistry become more important. Again, oftentimes why a relationship fails is because the chemistry is shifted and 2 people aren't spiritually compatible anymore, or their stories are out of alignment. So physical chemistry is important, but it's not the whole thing. Lots of times when 2 people meet, the physical chemistry will fake you out to make you think that there's enough. It's very powerful stuff, but often isn't enough. So as we go through life, we want to find a relationship where the relationship has a strong support network, where the chemistry between the 2 people are deep and valid to make the distance. We can't force that chemistry. So physical chemistry is important. You can tell physical chemistry because you will see and feel it like electricity. The person will smell delicious. The person will feel electric when you're around them. That's physical chemistry. Okay? That's the easiest of the chemistries to work with. That's the easiest chemistry to understand. Now, the next chemistry is the chemistry of the mind. The chemistry of the mind represents your story. So when two people have good intellectual chemistry, good mind chemistry, what you really are talking about is your stories are in alignment. Your stories support each other. And that's important. We want our stories to be compatible. We want our stories to be flowing together in a way to reinforce each other. Now, spiritual chemistry is the harder of the three chemistries to work with. Spiritual chemistry represents how you flow in life, how you see the world. It's the way you see the larger universe. So, for instance, an atheist goes back into being atoms, while someone who might be devoutly Christian believes they're going to merge into heaven. And if you have an atheist and a Christian who love each other, yes, that relationship can work, but the differences in their spiritual outlooks can create conflict, and often does as you get older. I'm not saying it's enough to break it up, but it is a factor in relationships. Another aspect of chemistry, and let's go back to the mind chemistry, is the culture that we grow up in. Because the culture we grow up in gives us our stories. So lots of times you see when people of two different cultures marry, after a time, the differences in the cultural stories will break a person up from their partner. I remember reading this one story about this one guy who married a woman from the Amazonian rainforest. And they got together, they had two children, and then after the children were about 7 years old, she went back to the Amazon to live with the village. And her culture, no, that's the way it worked. And the guy was heartbroken, but she needed to move because from her cultural perspective, she needed to go back into the jungle to live with her family and her history. So cultural stories can and do break people apart. So chemistry is the foundation of any relationship. Chemistry is hard coded in us. Those roots in that trunk, it's very uniquely dependent on us. And so one person may need deep roots while another person may need a different style of root. And that would mean their chemistry would be incompatible with each other. You can't fake chemistry. If you look at most people, they won't have enough chemistry to have a relationship to make it the distance. Now, there's one of the traps of our culture. What our culture teaches us is anyone can make a relationship work. All it takes is hard work. And that's wrong. All relationships require hard work, but the hard work comes after you have a solid foundation to start with. So most people begin with the hard work, the branches, but they don't have the chemistry, so the tree falls over and they don't have a true relationship after a while. So work itself isn't enough. And most relationships that fail don't fail because the person didn't try hard enough. Most relationships that fail because the chemistry wasn't proper for that relationship to begin with. So when I'm working with people and I see the relationship is off, then you help them move apart. But if when you're working with a person and you can tell that the problem is more in the branches, the hard work section, then you teach them how to come together. So that's one of the beauties of the system I developed. It allows me with pretty much 100% accuracy to work the proper way for each relationship. So let's look at the branches now. Let's go back to this tree, which has a nice set of branches for our teacher at the moment. So there are four main branches to a relationship. Okay, the first branch is harmony. And that's an easy test. Ask yourself, do you like your partner? If you don't like them, you're not in harmony. And lots of times I ask this question. The person will say, I love my partner, So I'll ask them, but do you like them? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, no, I don't. See, when you don't like your partner, it means that you're in disharmony, that they're doing something that goes against you. So like is really important in a relationship. Like represents harmony, and like is very different than love. Love is the growth, the leaves of the tree, versus the harmony, which helps hold the tree together. That's why harmony is a branch. The branches are holding the tree together. They're holding the leaves together. And when there's disharmony, what happens? The leaves fall down. So harmony is something you can fix. You can teach people how to be in harmony again. Now the next branch is respect. Respect is very basic in a relationship. It's a foundation in some respects. What respect represents is acceptance. If you accept your partner, that's respect. It's interesting because they did a study many years ago, and the people in the study could determine with pretty much 100% accuracy which relationships would fall apart. Because every relationship which didn't have respect fell apart. And you can see that because if when you talk with your partner, if you talk with 70% respect or more, that relationship will make the distance. But if you talk with less than that, if you're putting your partner down all the time, no, those relationships will never make it. So respect is an important part of a relationship. It's one of the major branches of a relationship. Now, the next part of a relationship, the next branch, would be flow. Think about what branches do. They flow the water and nutrients between the roots to the leaf. And if that flow gets interrupted, the tree dies. So the branches represent flow. So if you have a relationship where one person is a marine biologist and they have to be on a boat 9 times out of 10 in a year, and your other partner is a person who has to be a mountain climber, well, those two flows are going to take those two people apart a lot. And that's not healthy for that relationship. You can have a long distance relationship, don't get me wrong, but the flow, if it takes two people apart, undercuts the relationship. There are lots of different ways flow can impact a relationship, and there are a lot of different ways you can repair flow and work with flow. Now, the last branch is communication. Communication is the foundation of a lot of relationship problems because communication styles make a difference. If you have a direct communicator married to an empathic communicator, those two partners are going to drive each other crazy because they're going to miscommunicate a lot. So oftentimes in a relationship, when you're working on to repair a relationship, the first step is to repair the communication in the relationship, to improve how the communication's flowing. So that is the tree of love. And if you understand the tree of love, you can work with your relationship and improve upon it. So let's start from the beginning. The tree of love. 3 chemistries. You have physical chemistry, intellectual chemistry, and spiritual chemistry. That's the foundation. Then you have the 4 branches. And the 4 branches being harmony, respect, flow, and communication. The branches are the part you can fix. When the branches are off or broken, you can create a new branch. You can repair branches. Just as this tree has 100 branches, you can grow many branches to support your communication. You can grow many branches to respect each other through. So the branches are where all the hard work goes on in the relationship. And then the last aspect of a relationship is the love, the leaves of the tree, the part that supports us. That's the tree of love. Now, there are a lot of interesting corollaries. A lot of people think they're an island. And so if you're a tree that's on an island, you won't get enough nutrients and your relationship will starve. This being in a relationship doesn't mean you have to be alone. Trees survive in the forest. They do better in the forest where there's support around them. So don't be afraid to work with others in your relationship too. That's okay. Don't be a strangler fig that strangles your partner down to support you. That's another problem. When we have codependency, where one person will strangle the other person in taking too much. The other aspect that's interesting in relationships are the different types of relationships, the different levels of commitment, different levels of chemistry. Some relationships need to be shallow, and so then it's going to be a simple relationship. Some relationships need to be deep, with a deep network, where it's going to be fewer people, fewer interactions with others, but a stronger support network between you and your partner. So there's all sorts of different styles to work with. And depending on who you are, you have to match your style. The tree of love is a powerful system. It'll help you understand where your problems are in your relationship. The next section will talk about how to apply it to improve your life and relationship.